Greetings, my name is Slight, and welcome to a Gunfire Reborn over-explain, Slight Talks. This is going to be a knowledge dump on Gunfire Reborn. I'm going to be explaining a couple of things. I'm going to be going over a lot of what I think about the game, a lot of some of my ideas for future videos, and what's going to kind of prime all of this is that I'm going to go over the developer feedback that we got for Slight's Imaginary patch notes. So without further ado, if you're just looking for content related to the game, you don't really care about the developer feedback, you can look at the timestamps on the time bar. Just skip ahead of this next section. The next section is going to be devoted to that feedback. Okay, so back in February 13th, I reached out to the Gunfire developers, community outreach person, GZV. I'm not sure that this person does any actual development. My understanding is that they're just for community outreach. Then they handle some like more administrative duties as far as the development is concerned. Could be wrong about that, but I reached out to her in February. Basically told the person who I was and made sure that they understood who I was, and then presented them the Slight's patch notes with YouTube comments. And they responded saying, "Thanks for your passion for the game. We're familiar with your name, but we're quite busy with the mobile project these days. I'll let you know as soon as they give me feedback." Okay? As far as I know, an online real-time conversation may not be possible. That was something that I reached out for, was trying to get an online conversation, since the studio hasn't done anything like that before, but there are some other ways, such as an email or simply through Discord. So thanks again for the support. All right? You're welcome. And I made some clarifications about the document. I mean, the document has so many prefaces. You know, I'm really trying to be respectful with all that information. Even though I think I have to recognize some frustration from myself. That would be totally fair. Anyway, you know, I say quite a few things here. I say it's easy to be passionate about a good game. I'm disappointed about the real-time conversation, but I also understand. I do think it would facilitate an effective discussion, but I respect your wishes and have no intention to push their boundaries. And I think a real-time conversation would have done us a lot better than what we ended up with, but I'm just kind of trying to give you the train here, all right? Out of respect and recognition of the hard work, this document is meant to operate within the given framework already developed. You know, this is all review, you know, and I'm not going to go through every little thing here, but remember that my giant patch note that I sent to the developers was really trying to focus on stuff that would make a big impact, but that wouldn't be difficult to implement and would stay within the framework that they've already developed. We're not asking for this like whole new overhaul, like this whole new system. We don't need anything super complex. There were some more complex suggestions in there, like, you know, settings that you could set, which turns out to be more difficult than I originally expected. And I learned about that outside of this conversation, and it is actually not brought up inside this conversation. And so I kind of explain all of it in a more concise way. She said, I say she, I'm not sure. I don't think this is a she, but I don't know why I have just GZV just seems like a she to me, and then I've put that on the person. There's no credence to that. So if I mistakenly say that, please ignore it. GZV, got all that. Well, honestly, I'm afraid that we are all very busy with the pre-registration events related to the Gunfire Moldable this week, so maybe next week we'll have more time to go through this. Thanks again for your passion. We'll make sure that they can go through all your suggestions. Lol, we truly appreciate it. Okay, so, and I appreciate this. You know, GZV has been so easy to communicate with. I so appreciate that. That is a big deal to me. I have to do a lot of communication for my job, and this person being so nice just made the fact that this took 3 months to get 2-paragraph answer from the developers much better, because that's the end goal here, is I get like 2 paragraphs, okay? All right, so the next phase is follow-up phase. So your boy Slight here, you think he's good at Gunfire Reborn, you should see his follow-up game. It is intense. I don't let stuff slip through the cracks. Oh no, that's one of my things. So they're kind of short-handed. I know they're busy. All I need to do, all right, is just keep following up once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. You know, if I haven't followed up, just, you know, check in. Where you guys at? Where you guys at? All right? Just want to keep the communication up, all right? They're short-staffed. That's a difficult challenge. They're trying to take on this Gunfire mobile thing. Look at this. Great. Now, one thing at this point, so now we're in March, end of March, all right? So right at the start of April, I realized that they're having to translate this entire document. GZV is, one of the reasons this took so long is that GZV is translating the whole thing for them so that they can read it. And it's massive, okay? And, I mean, that made me think that it was taking a lot longer. And I don't know if that's actually true. We can skip ahead. So just following up. Like every time, so one of the things that you can do if you're looking at following up is like never be frustrated, unless it's really affecting you and what you can do. I'm asking for, people who are very busy to focus on me and read this giant thing that I've written that they probably think is stupid. Okay, so like recognize that when you're playing the follow-up game. So like no pressure. Every time they give you a date when they think they can do it, then you follow up the day after that date. Say like, hey, where are we at? Can I get a status update? And you just be super nice. So now, as of April 20th, this is when I think the real translations really started, and I could be wrong. So about 2 months after I originally reached out, and they are short-staffed, so this is not a criticism of them. This is just the actual timeline of when this happened. We get some clarification questions on the translation. And I get to clarify what those things mean, basically saying that I don't think higher difficulties are going to really meaningfully solve any of the endgame problems that the game has, because they'll just force you to using the most OP stuff even more instead of like actually giving you more options. And once again, more following up. And then, okay, so as of April 29th, thank you for your understanding. This is GZV. I've asked them about the progress. They have just went through half of the file and got caught up with some other stuff. And they mentioned that due to some developer and regulation considerations, they are not allowed to share much about the numbers. But they'll try to give you an answer, and this person will push them as well. GV, which I appreciate. Once again, that is so cool. Really respect that. They go on holiday. They've been on holiday quite a bit. And then I just follow up with some more stuff. My opinions have developed over time. Like I've been playing the game even more, and the problems have just gotten sort of worse. I wouldn't say any better, really. I do like the bleed mechanic. That was probably one of the best things that they added to the game, because they added another threat, basically, to the game, which is great. The bleed enemies are very strong. Most of the community thinks that certain blessings are super overpowered, and there's this big gap between like the first 50 hours of Gunfire Born, which are really hard, and then the end game like babies you, which is like very, very different. Like, why are we doing those two different things? The best thing you could do for a roguelike is just leave it unrealistically difficult, because then at least people have like a lot of room to grow if they really like it. So all that brings us to is I follow up on May 7th. Hey, were you able to get any responses from the devs? I hope your 5-day vacation went well. They said, I'll ask them about it. They have sent me a short response, but I think it's too short. The GR Mobile is about to launch, so they may not have enough time to go through the rest of the file this week. And I appreciate this person advocating. I just think I'm sorry. GZV, you may not be a girl. Okay, I use a lot of emojis. Maybe you think no, you don't. Anyway, we get to the feedback, and I'm just going to read this. Okay, May 11th, and this took me a long time to respond to. As you can see here, I responded yesterday. First of all, we'd like to say a big thank you to you and all other players who have had supported Gunfire Born and made effort on this file. We have read all your feedback and suggestions contained in the file thoroughly. To answer part of your questions in regard to reincarnation, heroes, and weapons, since it's a PvE game, Gunfire Reborn will pay attention to balancing numbers, but this goal will not be overly pursued due to some other considerations. As a long-term goal, we'll always try to ensure that there's no large gap in the strength of each hero and each weapon. On this basis, we would like to, or maybe prefer to, improve and strengthen content that was underpowered, or maybe introduce new gameplay to allow more options and experiences for players. Additionally, we do agree with and are going to take some of your suggestions with respect to scroll effects, rarity, and ascensions. We will gradually adjust the rarity and effects of dozens of scrolls on some heroes' ascensions in the next few updates. Therefore, you could soon see that some of your suggestions will be applied or partially applied to the game. Finally, thank you for your unceasing support, love, and patience for our game. Okay, so overall, I think this is a positive response. I do wish that it had gotten to me sooner, but that's not necessarily, like, there's so many hoops we had to jump through. They're so busy. They're understaffed. They have to translate this massive document just to get it to where they can read it. And granted, I think there's a lot of issues with the document now because I've sat on it for 3 months, but I didn't think it was fair to go in there and change it, because I did change some things, but I didn't want to change it too much because the people who signed on with the document at a specific time. So I thought it would be relatively unethical to make these sweeping changes to it after people had agreed to sign on to it. That just didn't seem fair. So the big thing here is that they're really not interested in nerfing anything at all. They really think that the only way to move forward is to buff things so that they're all similar power level and then give people more more options. And so that sounds to me like buffing things so that they're equal power level and make higher difficulties, right? With other different kinds of experiences. That's the game plan for me, all right? That's what I'm hearing. And for me, I'm not going to say that I know better. I don't. But that strikes me as a direction that's not going to satisfy what I want out of the game. And I'm looking for a tailored endgame experience that is intentionally cultivated, as opposed to something that is just sort of a little bit haphazard, it's pretty easy to just keep buffing things and then keep making higher difficulties. That I think that's a really much more accessible approach to endgame content, but I don't think that it's nearly as good as what it could be. And I think a lot of games struggle with their endgame. There are very few games that are built around endgame. There are very few games that are built around high skill players, and that is sort of the world that we live in right now. That's just the way it is, right? So, as a long-term goal, they're trying to make sure there's no large gap in the strength of each hero and each weapon. What you're seeing there is they're not very concerned with the specific mechanical problems of each hero as much as are they winning the same amount? They get data on I assume they get data on their win records and stuff like this, and they can see probably how games tend to go for each character and stuff, and so they make their decisions based off of that. So a hero like Albai, who has a lot of issues with his main kit and feels kind of clunky to play sometimes. I still like the dog, don't get me wrong. He has these amazing blessings, and all you need is one of them, and you pretty much insta win the game. The game is significantly easier, but at the same time, I can avoid those things. The issue has always been for me that I, as the game goes on and on, I have to avoid more and more and more. And I'm an exploration interested person. I like to try new things. I like to explore what the mechanics really can do. And if we make more difficulties that are harder, without fixing without balancing the game around the current issues that it has, it just means that all the things that are so overpowered now are going to be the only things that are good in the next difficulty. And I've already played all of those out. There's nothing more to be gained there. That doesn't solve the key problem, which is end game replayability. And that's why I think this direction is a little bit disheartening for me. So I sent back a message, and here kind of comes to this bittersweet moment. But I'm glad I was able to provide some useful direction regarding rarity, scroll power, and ascensions. That seems to be the best for everyone, since if the developers think it's worth implementing, it was likely useful feedback. I'm glad also to say that I'm going to be taking a break for a while and see what the developers have to offer once they've had more time to make gradual changes to the game. It sounds like they're really not interested in trying to balance the game, especially not a large patch that's going to be meaningful. It seems like their development, time is very much geared toward this mobile direction. I'm not very interested in that. I don't think it's gonna I don't think I will play Gunfire Reborn on mobile personally. I mean, maybe if it's really good, but I mean, how could it be better than playing on the computer? How could it be better? I don't understand, or I don't know if it would be. And so part of the reason I'm making this video is because this is probably going to be this could even be one of my last videos on Gunfire Reborn. Now, I do have one more video with one of the winners of the Blade of Bloom challenge. We're doing a duo challenge, and I think I'll be recording that later this week, and I'm pretty excited about that. But other than that, I am just going to try to dump everything in this video that I kind of can think of that was something that I was kind of planning on doing but didn't end up getting to, because I'm just not going to be playing a lot of Gunfire Reborn moving forward. I've got other things on my list of things that I'd like to take a look at. I'll be trying some other games, and hopefully I can find another game where I feel like I can help people. The biggest thing here, and I'm going to say this here in just a sec. Actually, let's just keep reading. Keep reading. I do not think I can currently maintain my content without drastically increasing the skill cap of the game via balance, since the goal of my channel is to teach and help players. I cannot stress that enough. The only reason that I started this channel, the only reason that I get interested in what I'm doing in this channel is when I can teach people something complex and help people achieve what they're hoping to achieve, okay? That is the thing that makes me feel good about doing this, okay? Otherwise, it's like self-aggrandizing and it's very easy to feed your ego when you get magisterial speech. You get people who listen to you. I feel like I would be taking advantage of that if I'm just going to churn content out, and I'm not actually providing a value. And so, it's very difficult for me right now to provide any valuable content because the game itself is so I'm not even that good at Gunfire Reborn. That's the truth. But I can trivialize it so easily. Like, the skill ceiling for this game is so low from what I know that I can get to. And right now I can't grow anymore either. And so I like to grow as a player. I like to teach and help other people. And none of that is being satisfied with the current game state. So, unfortunately, there's little to teach other players with the current game state, and importantly, okay, so now I get a little salty, all right, but I'm nice about it, all right. Importantly, many of the best builds that I've created in the past or theory crafted have been patched out after I released the build, making all my work for nothing. There are some things that I have theory crafted and built and figured out that, and then I make something I'm really excited to teach people about, and then in a short amount of time, it gets patched out and gets buffed. It gets buffed to the point where it doesn't matter. Almost all of my builds were basically destroyed because they were so easy to perform after being patched, making the entire explanation of the build and concept useless. All right? Meaning that the thing that I was trying to get out of creating that Gunfire content is removed, essentially. It is destroyed. And not to make that sound over dramatic, but it is the truth. And look, let me caveat this by saying, I know that's not intentional, but it is a product of their design choices. And I'm not blaming them or upset with them, but it is really unfortunate when, people who are passionate about your game are sort of punished by your design direction and also sort of seem to be ignored. It's very clear to me that the Gunfire developers have a clear path that they want to take for developing Gunfire Reborn, and it doesn't really matter all that much unless there's this big community outcry what other people think. And that's okay. I respect that. Obviously, they've made a very popular game, and it's clear to me that on some level they do know what they're doing. So who am I to say that they're wrong? I would be a fool to do that. All right? But I can talk about how I've been impacted and how this has affected me. And I think in general, a lot of this has affected me negatively. So this happened with Atomic Bomb. I created a build in its original state before it had received any buffs. And 1 month and 7 days later, it became the most overpowered Ascension in the game. All right? And everyone thought it was bad, terrible, a joke, before I figured out a way to play with it that was actually pretty interesting and complex and fun. and I did an over-explain on it. And then 1 month and 7 days later, none of that matters. Like, no longer was that a conversation. Now the thing that I had built was like a joke. Like just, it became worthless. And then this happened with Sword Mastery on Tau with the Unkillable Sword Defense build, where now, before it didn't have a 50% rate of fire boost, and people thought it was bad, but it was actually a key component in Tau's most consistent build. People didn't realize that, and then 1 month and 3 days later, it's clear that they don't even know the build. Like, otherwise, I don't think they would buff this, or maybe they're just seeing people not pick it, and that's that's for them. That's like, oh well, it needs to get buffed, But a month and 3 days later, it gets a 50% rate of fire boost while you're doing it, which is insane. And so self-synergistic with Tau that, you don't need all this complex explanation anymore. The same with Unstoppable Momentum. 16 days after I released an over-explain, it got buffed to have a 50% chance to reset at max stacks, which, again, makes all that explanation basically useless. The build is so easy. And then Thorny Bloom, which I included in one of my challenges, 3 days after I released the challenge, it becomes buffed into complete overpoweredness. And basically what you're witnessing is the erosion of nuance from the game. There's no, the developers have been very heavy-handed and sort of ham-handed with how they're buffing and balancing the game, and also unwilling to nerf anything. And I think that that's not going to serve them in the long run. Personally, as a game company, you should be able to bear the weight of your own balance and PR decisions. You should be able to effectively communicate the changes that you think are going to be healthy for the game and convince the community why you want to make a change. I think that if the Gunfire developing team had done a better job convincing players that the revive change was worth implementing, then we would have a much more balanced multiplayer experience instead of it being so easy like it is now. But they're just not focused on that. So I know you can't control all this, but this type of stuff is very demoralizing. I spend a lot of time crafting playstyles to teach players and challenge them on how to use these blessings, but then they're made so strong that there's no need to explain. Another one here is the Splinter Orb and how to use Energy Echo correctly, because Splinter Orb's completely overpowered now. I look forward to seeing what the team can bring in a DLC. I hope that the development team's vision for the game is the best one, even if it does not benefit me as a hardcore gamer and as a content creator. Good luck. Let's add that in there. Good luck and great job. Amazing game. I have almost exclusively good things to say about it. So that catches you up on the feedback. It seems like some of those changes are going to be implemented, and I feel great about that. It means that all that work to do this is going to pay off, because we were able to bring legitimate problems to the developers' attention, and they're going to take action on those. It's potentially the case that these were already on their radar, but maybe I'd like to believe that the work that we put into that imaginary patch notes file is going to make an impact specifically on what gets implemented over the next couple patches. And my hope is that that the developers recognize in the long. Here's something I'm hoping that the Gunfire developers learn from this, and maybe even recognize before it becomes a problem, is that in my experience, I came from Dota, I came from Warcraft 3. These are the games that I like. Heroes of New Earth 2. I played some League of Legends, not a lot, 500 games, something like that. That's funny. That's not very much. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I came from. And what is so clear to me, having been a part of those communities, is that the people at the top level of the community, when the game is built for them, they literally create a feedback loop that builds a community. All right, when you don't keep in mind that, you know, Dota and League of Legends are not balanced just for high skill play, but they are mostly balanced for high skill play. And then things that are like a problem in the like lower tiers get fixed as well. But often stuff that's like super overpowered in the low tiers tends not to be also super powered in the high tiers. Usually, like, you know, there's some simple like solution that like low tier players don't know to some, you know, to some hero. And so like they're this complex, you know, interaction between the balance. And so it's tough for me to see balancing happen for clearly the lowest common denominator player. And that's not a negative thing. Like, new players and players who are not high skilled should be a massive consideration of balance in game development. And it's clear that Gunfire Reborn has put that on a pedestal. There's so much that's so accessible about Gunfire Reborn that I really like. And that makes getting into Gunfire Reborn so good. Oops, sorry about that. But it's not a way to create a community. In fact, when your high skill players get jaded and leave the game, this happened with Hearthstone, the community just goes down. You know, where's Hearthstone's community now compared to what it was? You know, how many big personalities have left because the game fundamentally wasn't developed for them? And like, this is just another place that Blizzard drops the ball. It's a sad thing to see a game like this that is so cool, so interesting. I think that this could, if this had been built for mods, this would be competing with Risk of Rain 2 as like one of the best like roguelikes ever made. All right, and if they had a little bit, if they were more focused on community building, I also think that they would be more successful. But one of the things that I like to differentiate when I'm thinking about marketing is like, when do you prioritize getting new customers versus when do you prioritize keeping the ones that you have? And I think that like gaming has like a cycle where like you start by like getting customers, and then you've got as many as you're going to get, probably, or roughly. Like, you hit that first hump of all the people who are like heard about your game, looking for games, tried your game. And then it's about, well, how many of those people can I make into like lifers, you know? And like, that is a much better business model from what I've seen from my gaming experience. And keep in mind, I'm just speaking from my experience, so I could be wrong. But I see like how much money Valve makes from, you know, like giving the community what they want and balancing for high skill and adding like cosmetics and fun stuff for the people who are like mid and low skill. And like things that make the game more accessible without actually damaging high skill play, like making couriers easier to use, that kind of stuff. Yeah, and I just don't think Gunfire Reborn's going that direction. I'll be back if that's not the case. If this DLC comes out with like a heat system or some like modular endgame content, you will see me roaring back in. But right now, I need to take a break and do some other stuff. So, now that we've covered all that, we can look forward to some new patch notes, and I am going to just talk about Gunfire Reborn as I currently understand it, to give you pretty much all the information that I currently have on the game, and let any person who's interested in getting that information be able to find it. So without further ado, let's go to the next chapter of this video. Okay, next up, we are going to go through all of my tier lists and give them a quick update real quick. So, hello, and first we've got this one. Ugh, look at that quality. Terrible. Load better quality. Okay, let's copy that. Exit out of that. Expand canvas. Okay, so here's the tier list, right? I'm in paint.net, and let's play around with this a little bit more. So let's start from the bottom. So first things first is that Angelic Aura got buffed, and this is like definitely S tier now. This is an extremely good weapon. Back when I originally made this video, This weapon was, how could you say it? It was like it worked differently, didn't do near as much damage, and wasn't as easy to use. And so it's no wonder that it's so much better now. So, and I'm gonna make new layers for these so that it's easier to move them around. None of these have changed. These are all really still bad. Hell, Cavalry, Argus, Rainbow. Okay, so Argus is like okay now. It's still not good enough. Like it still only does a little bit. Whoops. Whatever. It's still only got a slight damage increase, and like the idea is you hit people into walls and stuff. I might say it's usually a void, really, for me. Like I almost never need it. It doesn't do any elements, and it doesn't have a high enough elemental effect chance. I could be wrong about the actual power level of it, but in general, I don't feel very good about this. And it's been buffed since I last looked at it. I think I had too high of an opinion on it before. Rainbow is actually getting some better treatment. This is moving up to the situationally OP category. Rainbow is actually quite good, believe it or not. And here, let's do this. These things are bothering me. Ugly. All right. Rainbow, like on Tal especially, and there's a couple other times like on the dog, can be very, very good. Rainbow is one of the better injectors because it never misses, and that is really, really strong. It also has a 10% elemental effect chance, which is really good considering that it never misses. Like compare that to a 5% elemental effect chance on the Thunderclap gloves or the laser gloves, and you're in a really, really solid spot. Really solid spot. Next up, Piercing Flame. These are all about the same. I will say that the Bone Cannon can be kind of situationally overpowered. Whoops. Especially on the dog. It just locks people in place. It's not interesting. Oh, it needs to go in only OP on. Excuse me. So we'll put it out here. Oh, I got this. Image. Canvas size. Perfect. The production quality is insane. Flatten you down. Okay, that's where that goes. So yeah, that's OP on dog. It is good. It is really good. Shrieker is way better than like this is just a strong weapon. The fact that it's a explosive weapon that can crit makes this a much more powerful weapon than I gave it credit for early on. Like the Tiger Cannon's so weak comparatively. Dual Fang is not very good, but it is OP on the dog. So this goes, out here. We'll do this. Ooh, this is going to be great. Okay. I think there's a way to switch these quickly. All right, there we go. Fine. So the Dual Fang is situationally OP or only OP on the dog because it allows you to do a tri-elemental build. You can do a Dual Fang plus one lightning weapon. Very, very strong. And very, very good. The Scorching Rounds is best with a Gemini or as a secondary weapon. It's just not great. This is a void. This weapon is very weak. It can't, like, realistically, this is only good because it strips a shield, but that's really not enough for it to be like that effective. So, like, I wish that it was stronger than that, but it's really just not. It really is just only good for stripping shields, which makes it very situational. Every once in a while, I'll pick it up, but it's usually not necessary. Like, doing lightning damage is already plenty. This weapon is OP, very, very good. And I thought it was, good before, but the biggest thing is that it has just such good combinations. If you can get it like no reload synergies on it, if you can Gemini it with like a fire tower, your damage is absolutely bonkers with this thing. And like if you can get 50%, 55% reload speed, or an enhanced version that has any like magazine capacity effects or anything like that, I mean, you will do some crazy damage with this Aura Venom. Excuse me, kitty. I would not hold on to me. So Aura Venom is definitely in the OP category. Extremely strong weapon. Should not be underestimated. I think that covers this category. Only OP on the Poisonous Ghost is solid, but it's not like OP on the bird, by any means. I'm just going to move this up to like solid. I don't think it's OP. That's like the biggest distinction there. And I think that this Laser Glove, it's not even OP really, but it's only good on great on Tau. But it does have some situational usage. I'm going to put this in the solid tier, just because there are a lot of times where you really can use it. The main thing to keep in mind for the Laser Glove is that it's actually only getting half of its potential effectiveness at the beginning of like as a vanilla weapon. It has 50 ammo, and it can stack up to 100 times. And each stack increases its base damage, which is like a small multiplicative damage increase. You actually need a high magazine Laser Glove is really good on bosses early on. And so for that reason, I think it's really solid, and it's good in like secondary skill builds because it just burns through ammo, especially if you have any rate of fire increases. So, I think it's fine. Goshawk, this guy here, I think it's still about the same place. Like only really good on Tau. Is it OP? Not really sure. This is it. You can get a pretty good one sometimes, but there's nothing special going on with the Rainbow Arc. It's just there's nothing really special going on. Not at all. Not at all. It's fine, but it's not great. Sting actually has surprised me with its effectiveness. I'm going to bump this up to strong. Having the slow early on is very good. It does good damage. It is good when combined. Did I do something weird there? Yes. It's good when combined with an Elemental Gemini. And more than that, it has the property of stripping armor. And you can use this to great effect. It's great against bandit retainers. You just shoot the big AoE blast. If you have some AoE explosion area of effect increase, you are doing great stuff against some enemies in the desert. You can strip the octopus of all of its stuff. Very good on the dog for that reason, because it has that built-in extra stuff going on. Because you can use the Sting with some other weapon, and you're just getting stripping armor from any enemy you hit with the explosion. Super, super good. Woodpecker is still really only good on lay low, and it's really only good when you're doing a chain lightning build. Woodpecker in general doesn't do a huge amount of damage. It's okay. These are all still in about the same spot. Basically you're looking at a magazine cap Gemini share, and you're in a great spot. Importantly, this Wild Hunt needs to just be moved up into the OP category, kind of the same way that Aura Venom does. All you need on this is a mag cap Gemini share, and it is absurdly powerful on any hero. All right, now if you get it with accuracy stability, well then you're golden. Then it's even easy to aim, despite being insanely good. But Wild Hunt is just absolutely incredible. It really just is. It's just absolutely incredible. Demon Lore situational AOP, obviously. You're just looking for no reload synergy, and you're good to go on that one. So, yep. Hopefully this is still somewhat usable, even though I'm just moving things around willy-nilly. I think my goal here is just by the end of this to have it look at least somewhat reasonable. All right. So next up, we moved these guys up here. The porcupine is not like super good. It's fine. It's not as good as a secondary. Is rarely good. I'm going to put this in the avoid category. Actually, I'll put it only OP on Tau. It is actually good on Tau, but on no one else is it very good. This is only good if it has like I'm going to put it here best with elemental inscription. It needs something to increase its elemental like percent effective, like percent chance. It's rare that a Star Devourer is worth it. It's also not very good on Dog because it's kind of hard to manage its reload. Dog has so much going on his screen, it's hard to like not shoot one of your weapons to reload it when you're doing so much on your screen. Sting, Sunder is moved up into the OP category. With the buff to this weapon, it is extremely strong. It should not be underestimated. Lightning Blast is still very strong. I'm moving it into the OP category. Miasma is absolutely busted still and hasn't changed at all. And Flowing Light also has a lot of really disgusting synergies that we found out since I made this guide or this tier list here. So Flowing Light is going into the OP category as well. Stuff like Energy Blade Flowing Light builds, as well as its ability to give 50% elemental effect chance to anything that you elemental Gemini with it, makes it like one of the best weapons that you can find in the game. Bloody Drill is solid. It's strong. These three are like the kind of like the target snipers that you're looking for if you're looking for like a decent sniper that kind of anyone can use. These ones all do the job. They're not super special, but they're not bad. Justice really has not stood the test of time. It is in the avoid category. I pretty much never use the Justice. I think it probably is here. We'll put it as only OP on the Dog. It is pretty good on Dog. But on everyone else, it just doesn't, it's low range. It's clunky to use. It just doesn't quite work the way you want it. And its elemental effect chance isn't high enough, to really justify what you're doing with it. So yeah, not my cup of tea. And so I think that covers solid. In the OP category, Angelic Aura, Aura Venom, Wild Hunt, Sunder, Lightning Blast, Fire Dragon is very, very strong, but I am going to move it down to just the strong category. I don't think it quite deserves that high spot up there. Flowing Light, Crimson Fire Scale is also one that I think is very, very good, and I think well balanced. I think it's strong and not OP. It's very low accuracy, really does a good job at balancing it and keeping it from being like too overpowered, unlike some other weapons in the game. Illusion's still crazy, Pupil's still crazy, Fire Tower is not OP, and I actually, even in its previous form, I think I would take back this OP category. The main benefit for like the sword is its 50% elemental effect chance is really, really good, but it's just not like single-handedly carrying your runs. Like there are other weapons that are much more safe in R8 than Fire Tower and very, very powerful. Scalpel's great. Can't go wrong with that. Thunderclap Glove, all you need to do is find any other lightning weapon, or if it has any like elemental effect inscription, or just re-roll it with something to get an elemental effect inscription, and then Gemini it with a corrosion weapon, and it's still like the best weapon in the game. But I will say that Lightning Blast is giving it a run for its money. Lightning Blast is super, super good and has stayed as good as I thought it was, and in fact, maybe even a little bit better. So this is the final tier list. I'm going to clean this up real quick just so that this is something we can actually look at without hurting our eyes. Okay, there you have it. I'm going to save this. And I will put it in the description so you can have this amazing tier list. But I think this is a better and fair representation of where the game's at. I think that this does show some of the things that I've learned about the game since I originally made this tier list. I wouldn't say there's a huge amount of changes. A lot of stuff is still like kind of weak. A lot of stuff is still overpowered. There hasn't been a lot of positive, I would say, like great direction for any of these weapons. Most of them are still overpowered or not overpowered for whatever reason they were before. So you can find this in the comments below. Okay, next up here, we've got the all-scroll tier. Oh, look at this. What is this? Oh, I guess that's as good as the quality gets.
And we are going to be moving through it
today. Oh, wow. Okay, well, I don't know exactly how much I can go through this, but we will do our best. Okay, all right. Any changes? So far, from the top, I mean, the stuff looks pretty much the same. Like, I don't see much changes. Like, deft hands is probably not this good. I would probably move this in usually strong. Here, let's do this. Ooh, yellow. How did you know? Okay. Oh, dude, you see that? Oh, man. That's precision right there. Okay, all right. We've got this ready to go. All right, so like deft hands, not quite this overpowered. You know, I'd put this in usually strong. These have made their way. Paranormality has pretty much made its way into so OP I don't use it. So has elemental power. You know, these I really try not to use these. They just basically trivialize the game for me. So try not to use those. Dual edge, I would say, is extremely strong. When I originally made this tier list, I had this much lower, and it definitely deserves a higher spot than what I gave it before. Advanced joggers is also broken, overpowered. Extremely good. This one is also broken, overpowered. Anything that gives you move speed is pretty much just absolutely busted. The game is like so much easier when you have move speed. It's insane. It's insane how much easier it is. Oh man, you forget how many there are of these. So I had Spirit Bible there. That seems reasonable. Premium membership, I would say, is better than that. You know, I'd put premium membership probably in very strong. It just basically lets you upgrade your weapons like a lot, which is really good. Decay driver, sure. You know, I don't have any complaints about most of the rest of the stuff. We do have some new ones. Oh, I forgot to put deafening mortar on my previous tier list. Let's do that. Let's do that real quick. Okay, we need to go to deafening mortar. Fire reborn, def mortar. Okay. Right. Yeah, this is super overpowered. That should not surprise anyone. What other weapon am I missing? This was added when? Oh, it doesn't say. Let me see if there's any other weapons I missed just before I forget. Rainbow Arc, Star Devourer, Rainbow Arc, Sunder, Thunderstorm. Oh, they're in alphabetical order, so I have to pay more attention than just... I don't think there was another one that came out at the same time that Mortar came out. Oh, Icy Spear. Yes, there is. Icy Spear. There we go. Also overpowered. Very, very good. Can't go wrong with Icy Spear. Does a lot of damage. Okay, we'll save that. Back to this. Okay, and for that, you know, like I guess we need to... Let me see. Gunfire Reborn updates. Yeah, I guess I need to like actually look at what I'm doing. This is for 1230. But this doesn't actually have the... Like, it doesn't have the image. Right? So, like, it's just like text. Added some enhanced scrolls. Some weapons got changed. Yeah. This isn't going to help me. This isn't going to help me. They made some new ones. I just don't remember... fix some bugs. What can you do? What can you do? All right. I'll pause. Oh, here they are. Here they are. Okay, first one is Elemental Magazine. This one is quite good. It's a multiplicative damage increase. So this is going to go in the usually very strong. It gives you a 50% damage. It's like a separate effect. So it's sort of like a 1/4 explosion effect every time you trigger an elemental effect. Very, very good. Reasonable luck here. Let's see if I can grab this real quick. Am I not pressing the right button? There it goes. Just being slow, I guess. Reasonable Luck is probably one of the best scrolls that you can get. It's just a massive damage increase. I'm going to put it in usually very strong. Yeah, can't go wrong with this at all. Rich Privileges is extremely powerful. There we go. I don't know why that's being so slow. There we go. All right. Rich Privileges gets really busted if you're building around it. This is a broken Ascension. Next up, we have one that's not broken. This is Overwhelming Shield. Shield recovery won't be interrupted when shield's below 50%. This one's fine. You know, I would say that this has some situational use, but usually it's weak. It's not good on dog or the bird. You know, I guess it's better than, you know, where I put it. But, you know, it's somewhere here in the balanced area. You know, it's nothing special. Speaking of special, actually special, Fight for Immortality is very good. Very, very strong. This is up there with a lot of the other defensive ones. This is S tier. Broken, overpowered. Makes you very, very hard to kill. Next up is Hidden Transaction. 33% chance to enhance a weapon by 1 extra level when enhancing your weapons of the craftsman. Yeah, this works great. And it does a lot for you. You really can't be upset when you get this one. But it's not like crazy powerful. It's kind of similar powerful in like with premium membership. Just like makes your weapons like more effective. Surprise bonus is one of those ones that's pretty terrific. Crossfire -1 primary skill cooldown upon casting secondary skill. This one's actually situationally overpowered. I'm going to put overall it's usually very strong. But actually, it's more like swingy. Like certain characters really benefited from it a lot more than others. Like the bird really benefits from terrific crossfire because it makes him so much tankier. But like the dog, you know, doesn't really benefit from it very much. All right. Surprise bonus is fine. It's a 15% chance to do 2 times damage, which is not bad, but it's nothing special. I'll put this in the balance category. Then we've got, oh yeah, this is the buff where they did, this was the patch where they added all these skill bonus things so that you actually had some chance to scale into the late game with skill damage. This is not very strong. This only affects enemies that are high HP. I would say it's at the bottom level, like somewhere down in here. You know, nothing special. Same thing here. Vindictive Nature, really just, you know, not Vindictive Nature. Enduring Caster is a 1% skill damage for every 5 total HP. So 100 HP is 20 skill damage, which is like nothing. You know, nothing to write home about. Really not that strong. 20 skill. I mean, sometimes you can get like a synergy going on, but that's few and far between, and it's still not strong. You know, really, still the only thing that makes skill damage builds like any good. This is going in usually weak. Any good is Skill Freak, which gives you a multiplicative damage bonus. And last one here is Vindictive Nature. If the computer will let me snap it. There we go. And this one's okay. I'm going to put it in like the balance category. You know, I'm never too excited about it, you know, but it's pretty good. Okay, so there are some here that I undervalued. Hawkeye Sight is one of those that's actually kind of unique. It's very powerful, actually. I thought that it was like better on snipers, but the truth is it's actually kind of worse on snipers because you get 2 times crit. You really want to use that crit on weapons that don't have a lot of crit. So like getting this on a wild hunt that can hit some crits is insane damage. Truly insane damage. Fisher Bear Paw's fine. Fine. Airbag is probably a little bit better than this. I'd put this in the usually strong category. Mostly it's like, you know, overflow damage protection when it triggers, which is great and shouldn't be undervalued. Thunderstep is actually proven to be better than I thought. I would move this into the usually strong category. The stun is long enough to be useful. It has a high chance to apply an elemental effect. Very good scroll overall. Really like that one. That one's come a long way. Anything that causes you to gain money, like the Copper Miner, is better than I was giving it credit for. Money, being able to upgrade and get lots of money is a big deal for getting into the late game. Untold Effort is probably one of the best skill damage scrolls you can get in the game. I won't say this is for every time, but when it's picked, it is usually strong. And I would say usually very strong. If you're doing a skill damage build, Untold Effort is the direction you want to go. It is almost certainly worth it. You know, Deadly Curse is fine, but still nothing to write home about. Wait for Good, we figured out this is situationally overpowered with injectors. When you shoot an injector with the Wait for Good buff, all shots of the injector get the crit damage trigger until you release your mouse. And so that makes this actually usually very strong. If you're going to pick it at the right time, it can be absolutely insane. Genesis is another one that I misunderstood. This is an extremely good ammo efficiency increase because not only does it... I'll put it, yeah, right next to Deft Hands. That makes sense. I would say they're about the same power level. Not only does it give you ammo back, but on the ammo that you shot that triggers you getting an ammo, you don't consume an ammo. So you're actually sort of getting like double value, which is great. Devil's Covenant is usually very weak. Minus 50% HP is really like not something we can justify in our games, especially in high difficulty. And I would say that the 25% flat damage increase of this guy is actually not too bad. I'd say it's balanced, not usually weak. Actually pretty good. And this is Fountain of Life. Fountain of Life got a slight buff where like it can increase your health over 100. And I'd say that now it's in a much more reasonable spot. I'd say it's balanced. You know, it's still not strong, but it is balanced. Energy Sandals, we learned that this is a multiplicative damage increase, which actually turns out to be pretty insane in some situations. So Energy Sandals is better than we thought it was. I'm going to put this in usually strong. When you pick this, it's often going to actually be pretty good. But if you don't pick it, then it doesn't work very well. Or like don't pick that in any build. Just pick it in the builds where it's like actually going to work for you. Similar here with the crit one, but not quite as good. I'm going to move it up to balanced. A lot of this stuff is still pretty weak. These two are better than I used to give them credit for. They do a good job applying elemental effects. And the Thunder Screen is especially good in the Armor Break build for the bird. And Thorny Carapace has really surprised me. It does good damage and does a good job applying elemental effects, so pretty happy with that one. Other than that, a lot of this seems pretty straightforward. I think that kind of covers a lot of my thoughts for where everything's at. Yeah. I'll do one more once over here. Oh, so this is Fisher Bearpaw, and that's Merciless Strike. And Merciless Strike is much worse than 50% Lucky Shot is not nearly as good as 2 times crit on crit. So I'd say that Merciless Strike is much more balanced. Fisher Bearpaw is pretty darn good. It's good at applying elemental effects. I'm actually going to move this down. But it actually doesn't really increase your damage except for in some like niche situations. So, it's fine. But, nothing super crazy special. And I will say that corrosion immunity and slow immunity are usually very strong. Both of these need to be moved up. Basically these keep you from dying to corrosion, and corrosion will kill you in games very easily. Getting slowed by 50% is not a joke. So having slow immunity, makes a lot of synergies happen, especially with Corrosion Enthusiast. And Corrosion Enthusiast also deserves to be moved up. It is the stuff that you can do with Corrosion Enthusiast in this game is absolutely nuts. You can get crazy high movement speed with that scroll. All right, I will draw some lines on this and make sure to post it down below. Hopefully, this is slightly better than it was before, and at least it has all the stuff on it. It's ugly. We're doing it, quick and dirty, and that's just where we're at. That's what life looks like right now. Okay, there it is. Next up, we're gonna look at the heroes. I don't think that I'm gonna actually update my hero ascension tier lists. I don't think that is something that's really that necessary. But I am going to talk about each hero, talk about their current state in the game, and just sort of give you all the knowledge that I have for them at the moment, and see if that's something that's useful for you. So I'll see you at the hero next. Again, this tier list will be in the description of this video. All right, first up, let's talk about Crown Prince. Okay, Crown Prince. I think overall is one of my favorite characters. I think that he is uniquely designed. I think that he has a lot of depth. I think that he also has a lot of design issues as well. One of the things that I love about him, and you can't see this is Smoke Genius here, is that smoke grenades scale in a way that's really, really hard to understand. Let me pull something up real quick. Okay, this is going to be hard for you to see, but I have to move this off the screen, otherwise it shows my name because it's Microsoft. But the next episode or the next video I was going to do on the smoke combustion build was going to go take a deep dive in exactly how to build the cat in this sort of combustion mage build using Splinter Orb to apply fire. Splinter Orb plus Energy Echo here. This was going to be one of the things that I was going to kind of show and talk about during that video was how smoke grenade scales and how it's this really complex thing, especially with acidic explosion. I love this amount of depth. Look at this. To calculate how much acidic explosion damage you're going to get, with a level 3 toxic smoke, Hex Smoke, and Smoke Genius 3 is obviously really complex. I had to make this whole spreadsheet to do it because it iterates in this really weird way, right? And so I had all this planned out, but I'm not going to do that video anymore. This is the type of complexity that makes me want to play Gunfire Reborn. That this is what pays off to understand. You start with a skill that does almost no damage, and then you're getting into something that's doing 52,000 damage per grenade that can be thrown, but it doesn't seem like it would be doing that, or why. And the acidic explosion damage gets insane when you get super high level, right? Super cool. This is really interesting. We don't see a lot of that in the rest of the game, right? So one of the coolest things about the cat is that the way that the secondary skill builds and works is unique and interesting and has depth and isn't clear exactly how it functions and how good it will be. It's just not clear and it doesn't make sense, and that's why it's good and well designed, because it obfuscates what's happening behind the scenes and allows the player to dive into it and learn it and understand it. Okay? What are the things that I really like about the cat? That's the smoke grenade. I do like that he has this sort of utility package. I like that he's the master of elements. And I like that his base stuff is all about, his shield being powerful. And so there's not a lot of other things that make him shield oriented. So all this stuff kind of goes by the wayside until you start thinking about how to use this and how to take advantage, especially of energy charge here. Really interesting, really unique, really like it. What do I not like about him? Well, first things are... Oh, and another thing I like about the cat is he's one of the few heroes that has 1-point wonders. Most of his stuff is best if you just get 1 point in it. If you're really trying to maximize value on the Crown Prince, 1 point in most of this... Not actually less this stuff, but Wildfire 1 point is best at 1 point. Then it gets really good at level 3, but the first point is really juicy. Same for Chain Duration, Blinding Sphere, Energy Bolt, Power Source, Energy Blade. All of these are great 1-point wonders, so you really become a jack of all trades. Not a lot of that in the rest of the characters. And for that reason, I think that Cat is probably one of the most fun, unique, highest depth characters in the game. He's also definitely the most broken character in the game, and part of it is because he has a guaranteed elemental effect application, which none of the other ones have, despite him being able to apply the most hits of damage of an element. He's also given the highest elemental effect chance on his secondary, which makes no sense. Don't like that very much, but that is the way that it is. And his level 3s of Pyro Dominance and Acid Dominance are just absurdly powerful. They're just too good. Hex Smoke level 1 is too good as well as Elemental Shield level 3. These things get you to be really... Oh, actually, this one's not as good anymore. Elemental Shield level 3, it's good, but not amazing. But Pyro Dominance, Acid Dominance are just absurd at level 3. Chain Duration gets ridiculous at high levels. You can literally stun people infinitely and then use Miasma on them and they die. You basically control the entire game from one character. And if you want to play multiplayer on the easiest mode possible, bring one cat along and have him play support with Splinter Orb and high levels of Chain Duration and Power Source and Blinding Sphere. And he's just going to, slow everything, make them do less damage, make them take more damage, and keep them stunned forever. Like, bosses won't even be able to fight you. Very overpowered, and really trivializes a lot of multiplayer content. And if you're playing him maximally, really absolutely demolishes an R8. I really wish a character like this could keep his depth without having so many overpowered ways of handling the endgame content. That being said, he is one of the more unique characters, and it would be nice if I could play him in a way where I didn't have to avoid so many overpowered things. But that being said, one of my favorite characters. Next up, let's talk about the bird. Bird is awesome. Really love the bird. He was my first love. His cleave is so powerful and fun to use. It's just high damage instantly in a large AoE. He's got like this really unique mechanic with the armor where he heals it up in combat, and he gets these invincibility frames. By far the most survivable character in my personal opinion, maybe after Turtle. The big thing with Turtle is if you want to shoot, you got to put your shield down. Emergency defense is one of the things, again, that I like that adds depth to the character, is that it's easy to forget about these base talents, but when you really learn how to take advantage of them, there's depth to the character. This character has a lot of depth for learning how to abuse emergency defense. When your armor breaks, you become immune to normal damage for 2 seconds, and this reactivates when your armor reaches maximum. So with armor break builds, you can actually sort of trigger this yourself, and that's why like regen hit level 2 with all or nothing is incredibly powerful on this character. And continuous strike is just fine. Also a lot of unique builds. This one here is a Victory Rush that you can't see. The coolest build around is Hail of Bullets. Everything beyond this gets a little samey, but Hail of Bullets does provide the most varied, unique interactions with the most weapons in the game for this character. It enables a lot of different stuff, and it is very fun to play. I do like that. I like Last Stand is a unique and powerful ascension. It only triggers when when your armor breaks, and I think, but it gives you a really, really good payoff for that, and I really like that type of gameplay. Fully equipped is also great because it's a massive damage and skill damage increase and tank increase, but it's for a very short amount of time, and that also is really interesting. I really love those. Nova Shockwave is pretty fun. Victory Rush, Close Combat are pretty basic. All or Nothing, super cool. Consuming all of your armor to do more extra damage on your leap and trigger some of these armor break options are really interesting. Regen hit's very powerful and weirdly balanced. Steel armor is pretty overpowered. And Last Breath is not good. Gigantic Explosion is really overpowered. And then a lot of the cleave stuff is actually really good. Death Mark is a 60% multiplicative damage increase. Defensive Cleave is a great defensive option. Easy kill games are some of the most fun you can do, and Fierce Wings is also very unique. Another one that can be built around with specific hero or specific weapon packages. Overall, I would say that if every hero was on balance with the bird, we would be in a much more fun replayability spot. The cat is so much better than the bird. In a lot of ways, the bird's main thing is that he really is hard to kill. Gigantic Explosion and Steel Armor and levels in Regen hit pretty much make you impossible to kill, let alone with any of the other defensive tools he has. Gigantic Explosion is easily the most overtuned Ascension. Minus 60% cooldown on his leap is absurd, as well as being able to trigger like Steel Armor with plus 100. Like you basically are immune for 2 seconds after doing this. It's too much. And it would be much more fun to play the character if there was more nuance into how to use these. In general, I only take like 1 level of Gigantic Explosion, maybe 2 levels. And after that, I really try to avoid it just because it makes stuff a little too easy. That being said, I do think that you can splash in from all 3 trees, which I really like. You're not pigeonholed into one. And for that reason, I think, Bird is a really fun character. Lot of exploration here. Almost everything's good. Even Cleave Carnival has its spot, even in a non-cleave build. Absolute Advantage also has its spot. You know, you can use it to apply Death Mark in a larger AoE. And early game, it's a big damage increase because you're hitting a lot of enemies at once. You know, Absolute Advantage even has some good utility. So yeah, great character. The things I don't like are that he just becomes unkillable. You know, that's pretty much the only thing. As far as his blessings are concerned, here, let's take a look here. I didn't speak about the cat's blessings, but Smogbound Zone is in an okay spot. You know, it basically makes, like, it's something that you kind of need to do, like, true smoke grenade builds because it makes Acidic Explosion so much stronger. Elemental Maestro is okay. Like, I don't hate Elemental Maestro because it's every 4 seconds. It makes you actually think about what you're doing. And Splinter Orb is just absolutely dumb. Like, the 1 second reduction in cooldown for every enemy hit by Energy Orb means that it's so easy for you to just like with a couple levels of a couple different ascensions that he has to just infinitely cast it on a couple enemies, and they just don't get to fight back. It's like, and it's not cool. It's too easy to get to that point. If it was hard to get to that unique position, then it would mean interesting. But the developers have set it up so that it's actually easy to get to this like overpowered position, so it doesn't even feel good that once you get there. Okay. Chinyan, the bird. Okay, so do this at home if you have deep wrinkles. Unstoppable Momentum used to be in a really good spot. Now it's pretty overpowered with a 50% chance to reset your cooldown on every single leap. Pretty much makes you unkillable. And with a couple levels of Gigantic Explosion, it's pretty much impossible to hit something if it's somewhere near you. So, you know, this is not fun. Bladed Cleave, I haven't played with it since it got buffed, but my assumption is it's really good. I could be wrong, but Easy Kill with Skill Freak was really good before, and my assumption is that Bladed Cleave was with Easy Kill is also really good. Oppressor is is actually kind of cool. It gives you 2 useful stats, but only 1 at a time, which makes it a pretty balanced blessing. I like Oppressor, and I wish more blessings were more like Oppressor. You know, if this was down to like 100% damage and 20% less damage, I think you'd be in a great spot with this particular blessing at a power level that I would love to use and would provide some nuance to the game. You know, really like that stuff. All right, next. Tiger. We gotta go to the dog. We gotta talk about the dog. All right. Dog. We're gonna talk about blessings first. You can't talk about dog without talking about his blessings. Right? Come on. Dog has the most busted blessings in the game. All of these blessings are disgustingly overpowered. I mean, it is absurd. Weapon Genius, minus 50% dual wield cooldown, 75% lucky shot, and your weapons share the highest weapon level while dual wielding. And then with Sharpshooter, you can just reset and dual wield infinitely while getting like infinite stacks of damage reduction from his other skill, Golden Comeback, which makes him invulnerable, do crazy damage, and super, super strong. Atomic Bomb is the best secondary skill damage build in the game. It's incredibly powerful, completely overpowered. So overpowered that many multiplayer games ban it so that everyone can actually play the game. Battle Scarred is the best by far defensive blessing in the game. It's absurdly good. It heals you a massive amount and gives you a massive amount of damage reduction, makes you impossible to kill. And One Dog Army basically allows you to not use your second, like your primary ability, because that's great. Like, let's incentivize you not to use the developed primary ability, and you become pretty much unkillable with a ridiculous HP regen, permanent 3% HP regen. Come on. And massive weapon damage and skill damage. Absurd. Just absolutely disgusting. That being said, he has the worst HP type. He only has 55 shield with 155 HP. Explosive grenades are actually pretty cool. I think that they're pretty well balanced. And I think dual wield is actually pretty well balanced. What I don't think is good is dual battle soul. I think it's not enough. I think that this is one of the issues with the character is that there's not a lot of depth in this part of the tree. This should be doing something more. Dual battle soul should be actually something that the players can think about once they get good at the character. Right now, that's just not the case. Okay, what are some more? There's a lot of problems here. Explosive weapons aren't very good. So this whole explosive tree tends to not work too well. It's actually okay to splash a little grenade damage. Grenades stagger. And if there were less things in the game that did stagger, which is not the case, there's a lot that staggers. But if there were, then these grenades would be much better. And I think when this was implemented, there weren't quite as many stagger mechanics in the game, but now there definitely are. On every character I play, I'm staggering people. It tends not to be too difficult to pull off, but. They do good damage. Grenade Master is a big damage increase, and a couple levels of these really matter. Overloading's pretty good. I think that the veteran tree is all about tanking, and the big problem I have with here is it just feels so clunky and like poorly designed that you can infinitely dual wield with no cost to yourself as long as you remember to cancel your dual wield before your dual wield goes on too long. That just seems like pretty contrived design-wise. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Rewards the player for doing something that doesn't make any sense and isn't cool, and you get an overpowered benefit from it. So the ideal way to play the dog is once you have sharpshooter and some levels in battle tested, you can infinitely dual wield, because by canceling dual wield, the amount of cooldown reduction you get is longer than the cooldown of dual wield, so then it comes back up immediately, and then you can just re-trigger it. But if you wait too long and you cancel your dual wield later in the dual wield, then you only get 17 seconds reduced on your 22 second cooldown on dual wield, and now you have to wait 6 seconds because you dual wielded too long. Really contrived and not super fun to play with. Close Call is one of my least favorite ascensions in the game. It's super strong, but it punishes you in ways that you're never, you don't play around. In Act 4, there are Elemental Jade Gunners, which do elemental damage, and because they do elemental damage for some reason, they kill you through close call. So, why, they're not clearly elemental enemies, nor that's like a Kappa. If a Kappa killed me through close call, I'd be like, oh, that's elemental damage, and I died because it only blocks, normal damage. But there are enemies that kill you through this that don't make sense and that aren't easy to understand and feels terrible when it happens. And for that reason, it's just not fun to play with. It's it either saves you or you die, and you didn't play around that. It just happened to you because there's not enough information for you to realistically play around it. Really don't like that. I feel overall, this should be spread across many ascensions, and we don't need 3 ascensions to do similar 4 ascensions to make you tankier. We just need fewer of those and make them a little bit better and more interesting. None of these are interesting at all. In fact, this is Golden Comeback's the most interesting one, but it's also the easiest one to cheese because of the new sharpshooter. Amber Eruption is the biggest joke Gunfire Reborn. It is a joke ascension. Twin Gunner is interesting. I like this. I wish it would, I wish it was different. And Ammo Expert is completely busted. One level of this solves almost every ammo problem you could ever have on any build, just about. And so why does it have 2 more levels? And I just don't understand it. There's a lot of lack of finesse in the dog, the way that this is all put together. I would love if I could just get my hands on it and just put it like everything the way I think it should be, because I think we'd have something really unique and cool. But that takes a huge amount of development time, and I don't get to do that. Next up is Tiger. Whew. All right. Tiger's probably one of my favorite characters. I think he's unique. Gifted Man is so cool. Love it. The extra sniper's fine. When your shield is broken, recharge your lightning. Look at this. This is another place where we have some unique, complex, hard to use effect, but it's hidden away in these talents, which are easy to forget about. And Surging Crit is also another one of these that can be hard to remember how to take advantage of, but if you know what you're doing and you are taking advantage of it intentionally, you get a massive boost from doing so. Surging Crit, with weapons like Woodpecker and Sting, which is a sniper, you get a 50% chance to do crit hits while hip firing very effectively. And that really cranks up your ability to be, it just improves your build diversity for the character. One of the things that I like about Lalo is that he does have quite a bit of build diversity despite being like the sniper. Oftentimes the sniper character really only has like one, like it just has to build sniper, and that's like all they're built for. But there's quite a bit of stuff going on for Lalo. You can build the sniper one-shot builds with Magical Supply, Thunder Turbo, Storm Blast, and Voltage Surge and Shadow Knight. Like all these are really self-synergistic. But you also have like Bolt from the blue builds where you're casting Chain Lightning, or you're not casting, or you're just like letting Lightning Governor cast for you. All that stuff is actually pretty fun. Heart of Battle got a buff where it works under shock effects now, so that's more interesting. And then you've got, this is all the weakest stuff in his kit. This is all sort of stuff that like trying to make Chain Lightning more like utility skill. It isn't quite there. They're just not quite powerful enough. Lightning from the Void is great. This is how you can like make like a hipfire Woodpecker build and just use that to generate Chain Lightnings instead of like actually casting them yourself. But Electric Circuit has good potential, but it doesn't really work very well. It's not quite enough damage in the way that it transmits, and it's kind of clunky to set it up. Hypercurrent is base damage, which is good, and if I remember correctly, this now works with. Let me check something real quick. What are these ads? I normally have ad blocker on, so because I'm in incognito, I have to see all this random stuff. Ew. High Powered Arc also gives base damage. Okay, so High Powered Arc stacks very poorly with Hypercurrent. So Hypercurrent was bad before, and then they changed High Powered Arc and Hypercurrent, and now Hypercurrent's like still bad, but it got changed. I don't know. Thunderbolt Converter is another one that's not very good. It's okay at level 3, but there's lost potential here. And Supercharge, all three of these should be better than they are, but aren't. These are all very weak, and they don't really provide any useful utility. Voltaic Aegis is the best defensive skill that Lalo has, and it is incredibly powerful at level 3. It is so powerful, it's almost impossible to die. It's at level 2, it's insane. This is one of the problems that I have with the character, is that all of his defense is on one ascension, and you end up just picking that one ascension every time you see it because of how powerful it is. If Supercharge was a little better and Voltaic Aegis was a little weaker, and you were kind of put in a position where they didn't really work well together, you would have a more interesting interaction for the character, but you don't. And that's one of the things I don't like about the character. Another thing I don't like is that Lightning Messenger is absolutely busted. It is ridiculous that you get a 100% shock chance in any way. So crazy. High Powered Arc is in a pretty good spot. It's strong but not overpowered. which I like. That's a good place to be. Unlike Thunder and Glory, which got buffed and is now, it was very good before. 50% fatal current cooldown was already insane because it worked very well with a lot of abilities, like Voltaic Aegis, like Lightning Governor, like one-shot builds. At 50% cooldown, it was already very, very good. And then they made it literally busted. 1,200% Thunderbolt base damage. Now we've got like combinations with Thunder Nemesis and Fulminous Zap. Fulminous Zap is not base damage, so it's a multiplicative increase with the base damage from the other thing, which just makes the build absurd. And I'd love to play around with it. I'd love to play with this, but now I actually can't play with my fatal current cooldown because it has this nonsense attached to it that makes it so broken that it trivializes the game for me, meaning that I actually can't play builds I used to play because they get busted wide open by Thunder and Glory. Ugh. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. Tau, okay, I can talk for a minute. I want to pause, drink something, so that I can talk for a minute on Tau. I got something to say. Okay, Tau is become one of my favorite characters, but was also one of the biggest, I think, development blunders that the game came out with. Okay, so we come out with the first girl character. Okay, all right. When I think of, okay, I'm making the PR move to make a girl character, this is not going to be like a very sexually driven like release. It's not going to be something where you're trying to do fan service because all the characters are animals and stuff. And I think you know where I'm going with this, but you actually may not. I'm not talking about the face. I don't care. Although I like it better now. I wish it was even more rabbit-like, frankly. But it's not about that. It's about, like, who are you trying to appeal to with this release? And if it's not fan service, then you're actually kind of, like, appealing to women. And you're, like, there's an opportunity there to, like, create, a powerful female character. And instead we get, like, we get a character who's, like, half fan service, half not, with, like, armor that looks revealing but isn't, and is, like, really weird, and she's, like, short and kind of, like, stocky looking in her model. It doesn't make sense. Like, it's, like, going in two directions at the same time, which worked really badly. And I think her face looks fine now, but, like, when you look at her in multiplayer, she looks weird. I don't like it. Okay, but the big thing that I really care about is that by far one of the least intuitive characters that it is the least intuitive character that came out. She and like all of her stuff works works differently than what you'd expect from the other characters. Fatal Bloom only works if you do specific things. Swords Out only works if you do specific things. So we got a girl character, that is like pulled in two directions visually, is the least accessible character that ever was released in Gunfire Reborn. Like by far least accessible. Why is this being done like that? Like if you're going to release a girl, like the turtle should have been the girl, all right? Or like all of the turtle stuff should have been put on the rabbit or something like that. I mean, even if their skills were swapped, I don't care that they're not thematic. You would have maybe gotten a better reaction. But by the time Tau came out, I think people didn't understand how to play her. And when you look at a character like this, you don't see a character that's complex. Nothing about Tau expresses that she's a complex character, which is a huge mistake. And I don't want to understate that. I mean, it was a huge mistake for her to come out the way that she did. Granted, I love Tau. I think she is a awesome, unique, interesting, high-depth character that has a lot going for her and a lot of replayability. That being said, everything else I said is also true. So, the galloping speed, up to 50% movement speed increase is really cool. Blade and Heart is one that I wish was like swapped for level 5 and was better. Resilient Shield is good, and is one of the reasons that she works. She's very squishy for what she is. But Superior Magazine is probably that one that like adds the most interesting interactions because it like makes certain weapons much better right at the start of the game. Like Wild Hunt has 3 shots. or concealed ammo has significantly more ammo. And so you can like use the concealed ammo secondary fire really early on Tau, even though it's like not great with her. Swords Out is very unique in that it is like not clear, not easy to understand how to take advantage of it when you first start using it. And Fatal Bloom's the same way. You know, you cast Fatal Bloom, it does like a tiny bit of damage, and then you have to like work at getting it to do damage for you. And I love that. I think it's really interesting, but it's not been realized very well. Let's talk about blessings first. As we do. Whoa. Chill out. Dow. So Sword Mastery, is great. It was good when you could just stack Blade Heart even when Swords Out was on cooldown. That was enough for it to be extremely good in the Tau defensive Swords Out build. The 50% rate of fire is just icing on top, and it works great. Blossom Enthusiast is -8 hits required to trigger Fatal Bloom. And what this translates to, what you should read here is, you can't play Fatal Bloom builds unless you pick Blossom Enthusiast in R8. Yep. Basically, there's nothing else that reduces the amount of hits for Fatal Bloom to like trigger. So you're stuck at 12 hits, no matter what weapon you're using, unless you get Blossom Enthusiast, so that takes it down to 4 hits. And then Glowing Bloom 3 can take it down from 4 hits to 3 hits, that you're triggering it. And that's obviously very strong, but it means that the only time you can really play with that kind of build is when you pick Blossom Enthusiast. Like, this should be -4 hits, and there should be other ways for this kit to reduce the amount of hits for Fatal Bloom to trigger. Namely, where is it? Swordsman. When you're at max stacks on Swordsman, getting a minus reduction on Fatal Bloom triggers would be really interesting. Sword attacks against Fatal Bloom targets count as extra hit or 2 hits or something like that. Something like that would give you some more utility for Fatal Bloom, except for just picking Blossom Enthusiast and going Illusion and, doing that. Thorny Bloom used to be interesting but terrible, which is fun. And now it's just extremely good. You gain, stacks. It's very similar to Thunder and Glory, where you get this massive damage increase, and there's all these ways to get secondary supplies that make it really easy to keep it up. If you get one every 30 seconds, then you can keep floating it, which is really easy. Ice Blade is also absurdly powerful. Dealing 10% of an enemy's current HP is absurdly good, considering how many blades you can hit people with. I basically don't ever use Icy Blade or Blossom Enthusiast or Sword Mastery, and now Thorny Bloom. All of these blessings are so strong that they trivialize R8 for me. So I have to avoid them, which means all of the cool things that they do for me I can't use. I hate that. Really don't like that. That being said, Blade of Bloom builds are so fun and so interesting. Sword Shadow plus Sword Defense was a unique thing that I don't know if it was me that found it out, but Sword Defense lasts longer when you get Sword Shadow, because then Sword Shadow takes longer to shoot all the swords. So you can combine these with Sword Guard to be really, really tanky. Warlock Parade's great. Empty the Swords with the Sword is wasted potential. This could be cool, but it's not. But I do love how Sword Enthusiast and Sword Shadow and Blade of Bloom and where's the other one? Luminous Heart, all combined. So let's talk about what I don't like. Sword Guard's a little too strong. When you know how to use this, and it's complex to know how to use it, but you get the maximum shield healing and gain when you cast level 1 Sword Guard at 65 out of 100 shield. I did a video about it. But I love that complexity. This is hearkening back to the cat smoke grenade, where we have this complex thing that's happening. It's not easy to understand, but when you know how to use it, it's very good. Love that. That makes me feel as a higher skill player, that I'm being seen as someone who wants to take on more of a challenge. That being said, Flower Chain doesn't quite work in its current form. Like, it's good but not great. It's kind of similar to the like the Chain Lightning that chains people together. It just isn't quite hitting what it needs to hit to be a good utility skill. It is better than, much better than Laylo's. I forget what Laylo's one is called. Sorry. Electric Circuit. It's much better than that. Oops. Because it persists, which means that you can get a lot more, and you can combine it with like Empathy with the Sword and Thunderclap Glove to do some like really interesting shenanigans. But Glowing Bloom is like in a pretty good spot. Like, this is ideally the type of stuff that you'd be using to try to do a bloom build on your own. But like, something that would help is like if you had -1 hit at level 2 to trigger Fatal Bloom, that would be a big deal. Mark Chaser's a little too weak to be useful. Curse Mark is better than I gave it credit for at first. It's pretty good, actually. Furious Wave's a little weak. Swordsman's a little weak. Ammo Extractor is pretty good. I like this type of way of doing a like no reload synergy where you actually sort of have to think about what you're doing to get it to work. I wish no reload synergies weren't quite as strong, because then they'd be fun to play. So I pretty much never get to play with this because like any like the plus 0.2 projectile builds or the Demon Lore builds are just absurdly powerful if you pick Ammo Extractor and know what you're doing. Epic Swordcraft is interesting, but not quite enough. This needs like a level 3 or even a level 2 and a level 3 effect to be a little bit better. Amplified Sword is one of the weaker ones, though. It's a multiplicative damage increase, but it doesn't work very well and ends up not providing a significant amount of damage on like kind of any usage. The big problem is that the duration's a little too low. It needs to be increased a little bit for this to be effective. Luminous Heart is one of those that's in a unique spot in the sense that it's not always very good. Like, it's so easy on Tau to to kind of cycle through your swords out once you know what you're doing, that like Luminous Heart never really feels needed. Like, you don't really need the base stack increase, like casting it without charging it up. So, and like there's no real incentive to like use any weapon that wouldn't be able to charge up your swords out really quickly. So Luminous Heart just tends not to be very good. Like this and Flower Chain and even No Escape to a certain degree, but not really. You know, there's some like variance missing. The biggest problem with Tau is that she's really pigeonholed into specific types of weapons, and she really can't use anything else. Like, she's what you would expect from a sniper role, where they just have to play the sniper. Well, Tau can pretty much only use high rate of fire, high number of hits, or high rate of fire weapons, and that's pretty much all that really works for her. Nothing else really works. Love Tau, though, gotta say. Turtle, one of my least favorite characters. Probably my least favorite character. Not shooting as your primary skill is just not good. Being able to infinite your shield, just like infiniting dual wield, it just feels really hacky and like a lack of finesse from a design perspective. Irresistible hurdle, where you're like hurtling so much you can't see the screen, just totally like not fun to play. Takes you out of like the whole concept of what it means to play Gunfire Reborn and be tactical with your positioning. And there's not really a lot to incentivize you to blend your playstyles. You pretty much have punch build or double tap build, which is where you cast shield and then remove it so that you get benefits from Hostile Gift and Unfathomable Ocean and which is the other one? Wave Rider. You know, you just sort of are abusing that. You're incredibly tanky, incredibly strong, and you know, you're just not that interesting. None of your stuff really combines with weapons. That's a big thing. It's like nothing that he has is like makes weapons more interesting. You know, it's all like stuff that affects him, but that doesn't affect the rest of the game or actually pose any useful or interesting interactions. So there's not much to say here. He's very powerful and very boring. in my opinion. And there's some they're trying to be complex with but they've done it in all the wrong ways. Whereas Tau has all this complexity that's hard to understand, but can be taken advantage of with weapons. Turtle has some hard to understand, but it's all self-synergistic. So it's you can just focus in on what you do and just do that, and then you're fine. And it's well, that's not very fun. Also, he has a 100% multiplicative damage boost that he can apply to people. Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay. What else is there to talk about? So I think to sum up the current state of all the heroes, that some of the things I've loved about these heroes have sort of been taken away. And that sounds like a lot to say, but it's true. I kind of fell in love with certain aspects of these characters, and when that gets, basically when all that nuance gets taken away, you lose something important in the character, and you lose something that made it unique and interesting. And so there's so much less that I can do with the characters now. And that is a sad thing to say, because I never expected to say that. My assumption was that the game would only get better for me and never get worse for me. But unfortunately, the viable space to make interesting high-skill builds has only decreased over the past year, and especially since the Turtle came out. The changes to the game have been very haphazard, in my opinion, and not very critically thought through. Maybe a better way to say it would be that they're clearly not targeting me and the audience that is similar to me. They are clearly targeting somebody else, and maybe they are targeting it well, and I just know that I'm not being targeted, and that's okay. I can be sad about that, though, and I can feel like that's unfortunate, because I would much prefer to really still be enamored with this game. And I think I would be if some of these things hadn't happened, and if there was still room to explore in the game. Right now, there's I'm having to, if you saw my Tau guide, or my Tau challenge, I'm having to ban, so much stuff, to have an interesting concept. So much stuff has to be stripped away and be at the discretion of the player to not do, just to have an interesting, interaction with the game. And granted, that was an incredibly difficult challenge. The third person still has yet to beat it. I've only got 2 people who beat it, so maybe I'll be the third person to beat it, since yeah. But I think that covers the heroes. I think there's, I think I've said everything I want to say there. Let's talk about the talent tree real quick. Now, one thing is I can't even see. Let's talk about a couple key problems. The legendary craftsman, being able to etch a Gemini is is much too strong. The game was much more interesting when you had to find Geminis, and you were sort of forced to actually change your build based on what was given to you. The introduction of legendary craftsman really sort of ruined a lot of the replayability of the game, because it made it so that you could get a Gemini on any weapon that you wanted. And this was one of the worst implemented things in the game, in my opinion, and has severely negatively impacted the replayability at high skill. And if you didn't know, once you have either 4 inscriptions or a level 5 weapon, if you etch, it will always etch a Gemini. And that's cool that that's not told to you, but that is really, really, really strong, and basically forces or allows the player to use whatever they want every round in the hardest difficulties in the game, which is the opposite of the way that I want to play. Emergency Protocol and Life Guardian, I think, are good additions to the game. They help you in the high tier. It is how these interact with other OP things that make you pretty much unkillable, which I don't really like. And what can you do? Reliable Bun is another hot contention. It's often the case that I don't want buns to heal my armor and shield. So this is a negative in most cases. That it happens. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it saves me from death immediately, but that's not always the case. And most of the time, it's wasted. And I would much more prefer to come back to get the bun than to to have been wasted on my shield that's currently recharging at like 85%. I do not like this, and I don't think it's good. Elemental armor, I think, is a little too powerful. I think that you should feel the negative impacts of elemental effects, and this makes them less punishing in a way that's not very interesting. I don't play multiplayer. All of this revive stuff is overpowered. Yeah, that's all good. That's all good. Which is the one that I want to talk about? Okay. This one's also extremely good. I don't know if just notice how ridiculous refreshing the peddler is. It is a very significant change in how easy the game is. Peddler slots are great. Occult scrolls, obtain 3 copper on dealing a crit hit would be really nice if this helped explosive weapons at all, but it doesn't. This is a little too, in my opinion, this should cost some money or something, because this is really, really strong. Other than that, Battlefield support's another one. One of the biggest problems I have with the game is that they don't do enough to distinguish how things interact based on what type of ammo you're using. So certain things only work as they work for certain types of ammo consumption. And they don't do anything to differentiate themselves based on what type of weapon you're using. And that is such a lost area for complexity and interesting complexity. Because imagine if you're playing Tau and you don't need as many hits to trigger Fatal Bloom if you're using a heavy weapon instead. You'd be much more incentivized to try out different weapons and play different play styles with the character. But because they seem unwilling, for the most part, to distinguish different interactions based on the type of ammo you're using, a lot of complexity is stripped away from the game, and a lot of interesting interactions which could easily be implemented are just basically unviable. And Battlefield support is one of those times where they try to do this, and they do a fair job at it, but the numbers aren't quite right. 10 special ammo is a lot harder to go through than 40 normal ammo. I can go through 40 normal ammo in I don't know, 2 seconds, but 10 special ammo is really hard to go through. So they're not very well balanced. And they're clearly not very well balanced toward the special ammo, which is dumb because the best weapons in the game all use normal ammo. So this is just another way that the game is slanted in a clear direction. Anything else? This is all fine. It's been so long since I leveled up, but I think this progression tends to be fine. I think there's some finesse that gets lacking here. But I don't think it's a huge problem. It's not something that I'm super upset about or anything like that. So, yep. Okay. All right. Next. I think that actually puts everything where I want to put it. I don't think I'm missing anything else that I feel like I need to say, but I think that covers pretty much everything where I'm at on Gunfire Reborn. My hope is that with the DLC and over the course of the next couple months, the game kind of hopefully, has a little bit more room for some high skill play. And, I think that I've been impressed in the past with the choices that the devs have made. And I hope to be impressed again. For now, I'm going to probably stop playing, except for that I do owe one game. So I'm going to take a break. And this won't be my game. It won't be, it's sad, but it is. It won't be my game anymore. And I'll be looking for another game. So if you have any suggestions on other games I could play, remember that the main focus of this channel is to find... the reason I like doing this is teaching. I really like helping and showing people that they can push themselves beyond their boundaries and that there is more depth and complexity than what immediately seems, and that we can constantly challenge our assumptions and become better because of it. So games that have been out for a long time tend not to be as good because, there's already a huge amount of content out there for it, and I don't know if I'd be adding anything, and so that would probably not be super interesting for me. But if you do have something that looks interesting, looks like a place where maybe I could be helpful to new players, let me know, and I'll give it a shot, and maybe we can help some people out in the future. So anyway, until next time, see you guys.